Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. There seems to have been an uncharacteristically unguarded moment where Humza Yousaf seems to have opened his mouth and let the truth come tumbling out. That's not like anyone from the SNP at all. Certainly not senior members who know better than to ever let the truth come out, regardless of how innocuous it is. They must always lie. But this time, the truth has come out, and he said something that virtually everyone else sort of believes and thinks. And it's astonishing. Because it appears Humza Yousaf admitted that when he heard Nicola Sturgeon was resigning, it's because he thought it was the police fraud probe. He thought they were coming for her, and that was why she resigned. That was his first thought. Of course, it was the first thought of most people, wasn't it? He thought what everyone else thought, and he's never admitted it before. He's let the cat out of the bag there. But beyond that, Mary Black also was moaning about the arrest because she says Nicola Sturgeon's arrest ruined her honeymoon. Well, unless she was going on honeymoon with Nicola Sturgeon, which, let's face it, wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility. I can't see why it would get her upset. But anyway, we'll take a look at this article. But isn't it weird how the truth can come out at such strange, unguarded moments as the Edinburgh Fringe? Here goes. So, Humza Yousaf admits he thought Nicola Sturgeon had resigned because of the police fraud probe into SNP finances, as the outgoing senior MP Mary Black complains former First Minister's arrest ruined her honeymoon. Now, how on earth has Humza Yousaf, a man steeped long in the lies and cover-ups of the SNP, suddenly taken to doing such weird things as telling the truth? It is astonishing, isn't it? He made the unguarded remarks in an appearance at the Edinburgh Festival, and it's stunning. I mean, I can't recall the last time anyone in the SNP opened their mouths and let the truth come out. Scotland's First Minister Humza Yousaf has admitted he was among those who wondered if a police probe into the SNP's finances influenced predecessor Nicola Sturgeon's surprise decision to quit. Well, we all suspected, didn't we? We knew it certainly wasn't the bullshit reason of losing a vote with the gender bill. That was just the cover. That was the fig leaf to hide her embarrassment. No pun intended, actually. Anyway, the SNP leader last night said his own first thought when her husband Peter Murrell, the party's former chief executive, was arrested in April, was that the investigation may have been a factor. But he insisted he does not believe his predecessor knew what people are accusing her of when she announced she was standing down as First Minister. And if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. Of course she knew it was coming. She absolutely knew. She's up to her back teeth in it. He made the unguarded comment in an appearance with the Edinburgh Festival, and asked by, I'm not going to say the word comedian because he's not funny, Matt Ford, whether the first arrests and revelations about a motorhome being seized led him to believe it was the reason for Miss Sturgeon's resignation. Miss Yousaf said, I think everybody had that thought. So, you know, his first thing wasn't, oh, Nicola's innocent. Nicola is being, ultra cautious. Nicola really is, resigning over this gender bill. That wasn't his first thought. His first thought was, she's guilty. She's resigning because she's guilty. And to be fair, that's everybody's thought. And he's actually said the thing there. He said, I think that's what everyone had thought. Or everyone had that thought. Again, it's one of those unusual occurrences where he's right. He's honestly right. He said, but I genuinely believe Nicola when she says, we've not talked about the police investigation, but going by a public commentary, that she said, look, I did not know what was going on. And we all know that that is a complete and utter pack of BS and doublespeak. It came as a senior SNP MP said that Miss Sturgeon's own arrest in June, she was later released, had upset her honeymoon. I can't see why. Westminster Deputy Leader Mary Black said her original honeymoon was interrupted by Boris Johnson resigning last year, and the second trip away as compensation this year was disrupted as the second day that there's a tent put up outside Nicola Sturgeon's home. There was no tent put up outside Boris's. How come that upset you? Or do you have a secret man love for Mr. Johnson? Is it after all these years of forswearing off the cock you suddenly find a Johnson attractive? Miss Sturgeon was arrested as part of the police investigation into the use of £600,000 worth of donations earmarked for Independence campaign, and we've covered this a million times. The 52-year-old, and I still can't believe she's only 52. I'm 56 and she looks years older than me, especially now. She hasn't half aged since she's resigned. Must be all the stress. Anyway, the 52-year-old stood down as both SNP leader and First Minister in March, since when there have been several dramatic developments in the probe. Mr. Murrell was arrested, and then there was a 2-day police search of the couple's Glasgow home in April. This saw the blue forensic tent erected out of the front of the property, while officers were spotted scouring both inside the house and outside in the back garden, looking for where they'd buried the bodies. And by that, I don't mean real bodies. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute there's real bodies. I meant they may have, salted away little boxes with trinkets in, X marks the spot. 30 paces from the oak tree, turn left, that kind of thing. Soon afterwards, a luxury camper van, thought to be worth around $110,000, was seized by police from Mr. Murrell's mother's home. Colin Beattie, the SNP's then treasurer, was arrested later in April and subsequently stood down from his party role. Again, we know all this. Mr. Yousaf also admitted his policies are failing to come across because of the focus on the police probe into the party's funding. No, my darling, you need to stop that sentence after the word failing. Mr. Yousaf also admitted his policies are failing. And that's perfectly fine. That's as far as that sentence needs to go. Asked if he felt that if the crisis is not his fault, but he's been landed with dealing with it, Mr. Yousaf said he did feel a little bit, and the timing has been a challenge. Everything with him is a challenge because he's not very bright, is he? He said he was called about Mr. Murrell's arrest within days of becoming First Minister, and then SNP Treasurer Colin Beattie was arrested on the day he was setting out his prospectus in Parliament. Both were released without charge. He said the most frustrating part for me is the inability to then cut through to what I'm trying to do. What? Ruin Scotland? No, you're making a fine job of that, mate. He says, because I'm afraid, if I like it or not, that the image of the police tent in the garden is going to sear in people's minds. No, people know that she's a crook. That isn't going to change people's minds. Looking at you and seeing what you're doing in Scotland will change some people's minds. People who previously voted SNP are going to vote elsewhere. It's got nothing to do with the blue tent in Sturgeon's front garden. Miss Black announced last month she will stand down at the next election, thus improving the smell of the house overnight. Saying Westminster is one of the most unhealthy workplaces you could ever be in. Well, it is for other people while you're there, but thankfully it'll be like a breath of fresh air, because apparently she's not hot on the old soap front. You need to hide a tenner, wrap it up, put it under a bar of soap, be safe forever. Speaking at an in conversation with event at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, Miss Black said, "It's a human decision rather than a political one. I want to enjoy my life. When I realise I've now spent a third of my life in Westminster, it just makes my stomach turn." Well, it's probably the smell, love, isn't it? Responding to questions from the event host, journalist Graham Spears, where he said she was seen to thrive in the chamber. No, not really. I don't think she's thrived in the chamber. Said, you're only seeing a 3-minute clip. You don't see the other 23 hours a week that I've had to spend surrounded by arseholes. That's exactly what your colleagues think, isn't it? And that's the end of that. We'll come up. But yeah, I mean, for Humza Yousaf to stand there and admit that his first thought was, she's guilty. I mean, it's not the words he's used, but the fact that he went through his head and went, oh, this is all to do with the police investigation, and she's resigning. If that's your first thought. Your first thought is, she's guilty. And it's what everyone else thinks. And I'm coming up. Now, of course, he can look back and he can rewrite history. He can do a bit of revisionism. He can redact things that he said. But ultimately, at the heart of it, the one truth that comes out of this is that his initial thought, and therefore his attitude to Sturgeon, was that she was guilty. That was his first thought. Sturgeon's guilty. Now, he'll change it. He'll say, I didn't think that, and blah, 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 blah. But admitting his first thought was that she's resigning because of that, it meant that in his mind, his initial thing, she's guilty. And this is a man who's known her all his political life. And if that's his go-to, it kind of makes you think that's exactly what she's like. If someone who was worked with her for years has that initial reaction, well, I'll let you draw your own conclusions to that. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, Humza Yousaf sometimes is right, especially when he says that his first thought was she's guilty. That was my first thought too. Bye.